What's going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with James Grande, bringing you the NBA DFS live stream for tonight's slate. James, you're the man on the playbook. There is just an incredible amount of value tonight. Big names already ruled out. Thankfully, we don't have to wait too long for that information. No Joel Embiid, no Anthony Davis. Despite all of that action that's happened, how are you feeling overall about today's slate?
I'm feeling good, man. I mean, we said it on the podcast last night that this 7-gamer was fun. When we were breaking it down, it was fun, and that didn't really change throughout the day. It only kind of got better with like guys that we kind of all figured would be out, like Anthony Davis playing on a back-to-back and Joel Embiid, who doesn't play 70 games in a season. So we kind of suspected that, and we're prepared for it. So to say we weren't prepared for it would be a lie, because we were ready for both those things to happen. We were ready for Paul George to be ruled out and quiet to play. So nothing has really changed throughout the day. There hasn't been like anything significant. The value pretty much stayed the same. And we talked about the Miami value. We probably didn't talk about the Miami value enough yesterday. Let's just get it out of the way. The Toronto value is the play tonight. That's the value that most lineups are going to be building around. Guys like Norman Powell, guys like Chris Boucher, Bobby Boucher, and Ronnie Hollis-Jefferson. They're all going to be core pieces in a lot of lineups. You could play 2. You were just like, would you play 3? You can get away with playing 3. So don't miss that. I would probably have close to 2 of them in each one of my lineups tonight. But yeah, like we said, the value didn't really change from last night to now. We were prepped and ready, John. So just like last night, we're prepped and ready to go on this live stream as well.
Yeah, we definitely sort of read the tea leaves. We thought a little bit there on who could be in and out. We expected, we sort of theorized that Anthony Davis maybe would get hurt against Phoenix or something like that and bow out of that game. That's what ended up happening. Ended up being a rib injury this time, not even a shoulder. So, that happened. And then we figured maybe Embiid would sit out after playing all those minutes. And, of course, the back-to-back with Horford sitting out last night, it made a lot of sense. So, not wrong, but like you said, we have a good-sized slate here, a lot of value opening up, and you can really make some interesting, lineups. It's definitely a start and scrub night, and there's some good games here to stack. Let's jump right into it. With your playbook, you have Dame Lillard at the top there. I was pretty high at him last evening. We do have pretty good ownership projection for him tonight, despite him being expensive on that back-to-back. But how are you feeling now? Again, he's on your playbook. He gets Toronto. They're limited. Fred VanVleet's a very small guard. What's your take there on Lillard, rather, and then sort of the rest of your point guard position here?
So, like, right before we got on air, I saw a Portland kind of fan account tweet about Toronto smacking the Blazers tonight, and Dame responded with that emoji where his fingers are on his chin. So that pretty much summed it up. He's going for 60 actual tonight. I read between the lines. But I mean, he's a good play. He's not my favorite play. I think Kemba in a spot against Washington in a 230 total, I prefer. I'm not necessarily worried about the twinge in his neck because we haven't heard anything about it all day. If that was something we heard about, I think I would have been a little more hesitant. Maybe I pivot to Lillard in that regard. I also don't want to pay over $10,000 for him over on FanDuel, especially with guys like LeBron priced the way he is, guys like Kawhi priced the way they are. I would rather go get Kemba. I love Ben Simmons tonight. And you and I had a quick back and forth like, hey, even with this slow pace, I don't necessarily think the pace affects Simmons all too much. He's not a guy, I mean, he could do it all. And he can give you 20, 10, and 10 in a 90 to 85 game. It's just the type of player he is. With Embiid off the floor this year, 1.14 fantasy points per minute. So, I mean, the production does not drop off at all. The usage rate is what it is. He's not like a high usage player because he's generally a pass-first guy. And then Rozier. I think Rozier is vastly underpriced on DK. Has he been the guy? No. Devontae Graham, we talked about it on the podcast last night. But they paid Rozier to be the guy. And we're still only 10 games into the season. Like, the jury is still out. I think it's far too early to just be like, oh, get rid of Rozier 10 games in. Like, let's pump the brakes. We saw in a pretty large sample every time that he played for Boston last year, an extended role. I mean, for the last couple of years, an extended role, he was very productive.
Yeah,
so, maybe it's because he has a worse team around him. Maybe that could be the case. He's trying to learn to play with a worse team because he had it pretty good in Boston with all the talent around him. So I'm not really off of Rozier. I think that price tag is really appealing. And then a couple guys I have written up top. Both the Spurs point guards are GPP darts. I mean, we saw DeJounte get pulled for Derek White. Derek White played 20 minutes, and he played really well. But we know DeJounte has the 40-point upside, and we know one of these games, right before lock, Pop is going to come out and say, there's no minutes restriction. So
yeah, exactly.
And then Isaiah Thomas. I'm not totally into Isaiah. I think on FanDuel it makes sense. It's very hard to pay up for both point guard positions tonight. Like on DraftKings, you could just plug Simmons in at 6'8". That is the easiest play ever. There's no 6'8" Ben Simmons on FanDuel, so Isaiah Thomas is not a bad price tag over on FanDuel. I think he's fine for all formats in that revenge narrative. Even though I told you, I'm not buying into the revenge. But we did see IT play 30 minutes.
It's not even just the revenge. It's he does have the role, the minutes he's starting, right. So there's obviously a little bit more to it. Plus, I'm expecting at least Smart to get Bradley Beal, which means IT will get Kemba. Kemba's a smaller guard, not a great defender. So, I kind of, believe in a little bit. Plus, Thomas is a player that kind of plays up to the theatrics of things. So, not really, too far off that play, in my opinion, tonight. But I definitely understand, where you're coming from. Plus, again, I'm a Celtic fan. I have a lot of good memories of those 2 years watching IT. Right. So, maybe I'm slightly biased there, but overall, you're right. I mean, I think I'm desperately trying to figure out ways to fit more Ben Simmons into my lineups tonight. I think that's such a great spot for him. If we go to shooting guard, we don't need to expand on Harden too much. Right. But someone that you didn't have written up was Russell Westbrook at point guard. The price on him is still below $9,000 on DraftKings. Right. Against the Clippers, if you think maybe Pat Beverly is the one that's guarding Harden, is that sort of are you just fading Westbrook, or is he just a victim of, you can't fit everybody in the playbook? There are other plays you would prefer.
I mean, just set that price range. I'd rather play Kemba Walker for cheaper. He's been more productive. He's given us 50 in essentially 4 straight games. Westbrook has gone 25, 40, 36, 43 fantasy points. He just doesn't look – he almost looks a little lethargic and just like deferring to Harden. I mean, look at that whole fourth quarter where Harden took over and ended up scoring 39 actual. Where was Westbrook? He wasn't anywhere to be found.
I thought the big telling thing was, we look at the usage rates and all those things. This year when House and Gordon were off the floor, Westbrook's usage rate was sort of like a pedestrian for him, right. Like 26%, and Harden's was like almost over 50. So like just insane level of usage there for James Harden. I definitely agree with the play, and that's why Harden's there, your top list of your shooting guards, and he's 11-7 and 12-2, so you're definitely gonna have to pay him up. But I actually don't have a ton of James Harden. I have more of the next guy you have in your playbook, and that's D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah, so just to one more point on Harden, I think if you really want to get him at low ownership, tonight's the night. Like, if you want to play Harden at a night where he's not going to be high owned, because everyone's going to play LeBron, and everyone's going to play Kawhi, and everyone's going to play Karl Anthony Towns at 9,400. Those are the 3 plays everyone's going to play. If you want to play Harden for ownership purposes in a tournament, obviously do it. He can go for 90. Like, he legitimately has 90-point upside. So that's the last thing I'll say about Harden. I love D'Angelo Russell. I mean, again, we're talking about a guy who's taking 25-plus shots at night. We're talking about a guy who is scoring 30-plus actual points, a guy who has a 37-shot, 52-point game, and we've seen his price decline. Sure, Avery Bradley is a good defender. This isn't the Celtics' Avery Bradley as a defender, though. Right. Sure, Danny Green. This isn't Danny Green of the Spurs, where he was like the Bruce Bowen light 3-and-D guy. This isn't. I mean, yes, the Lakers are a good defensive team. They're losing a lot of rim protection with Anthony Davis off the floor. Plus, they have tired legs. Kuzma is not the same rim protector as Anthony Davis. So I think Russell is in a great spot to once again smash. And we have a ton of revenge on the slate. I don't know if you noticed, like there's a million narratives.
Somebody tweeted out today the all revenge lineup on DraftKings, and it was like, this is the lineup. It's going to win you all the money, and it was. It was literally every revenge narrative play that you could build out there. Is impressive.
And we know Russell and the Lakers do not have a great relationship. Maybe it's the past ownership.
They traded him to keep Nick Young.
So. Right. I mean, that kind of says it all. And Nick Young's not even in the NBA anymore. So, like, what? This was circled on the calendar for Russell.
Yeah, sure.
But the rest of the position is pretty strong as well. I think I love seeing Fred VanVleet's ownerships that low, John, because we talk about the Raptors being chalky. I mean, you think about it, it can be, because now that Paul George has officially been ruled out, I think there's ownership that slides Lou Williams' way. We haven't gotten word on Jeff Teague yet, right?
We did just now.
Out?
Active. $4,700 from DraftKings.
That is super appealing if it comes out and says he's not limited, because it was an illness. So like
4,600 rather. Sorry.
I mean, we don't have a lot of value at point guard. So if you want to go Jeff Teague's route and he's not limited, I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
That kind of takes me off Wiggins and cash. Wiggins in tournaments, fine. Wiggins in cash, no. That ownership could actually slide to VanVleet, the Wiggins ownership.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he played 45 minutes.
I know.
What more do you need? He played 45 minutes and took 20 shots, and now he gets a bad Portland defense on a back-to-back.
Right.
They ranked 21st against point guards. They're 18th in defensive rating. I mean, we really have it all lined up for VanVleet. And, I mean, let's say more than 6 of those 20 shots fall. We're talking about a guy who goes for 40-plus fantasy points, not 33. He still got his 33 going 6 for 20. And then, again, Norman Powell ownership, 3.5%. Not true. No way, no how. He's playing 30-plus minutes again. Not at that cost. I mean, 30-plus minutes. And again, it's the Heat value times 2. Get Norman Powell in your lineups, VanVleet for tournaments. I'd be comfortable with VanVleet in cash games too. And then, DeMar DeRozan, huge pace-up spot. Dylan Brooks has been really good. He had a couple bad games, but the minutes and the blowouts were a factor. Anytime the game has stayed close, and I don't suspect Charlotte just suddenly blows Memphis out because Charlotte is not that good, Dylan Brooks has been really good, one of their leading scorers, one of the only people we could trust on that team for minutes. And
seems that way.
Yeah, and then
hopefully not tonight though, because we're all in on somebody else. So
right, hopefully, yes. And then Furkan Korkmaz. So interestingly enough, 0.98 fantasy points without Joel Embiid on the floor this year.
I saw that. Yeah.
That's not bad. That's a really good number. 21.7% usage as well. So just to throw that out there, I mean, he's their literally only shooter they have on this team. Nobody else can shoot. It is people who pick Philly. I don't see it right now because they're going to need to make a move to get some perimeter shooting, aka JJ Redick. They should probably bring back. But I digress. But that's it for me. What's Kyle Korver doing? But that's it for me at shooting guard.
Yeah, that's fine. LeBron James, obviously, don't need to expand on it too much. No Anthony Davis. It should just...
He's the play. Yeah,
it should just click over to you to understand, that he's the guy. Hilariously, 37% usage, 1.7 fantasy points per minute without Anthony Davis on the floor this year. So, for sure, go in that range. Kawhi, I'm big on Kawhi tonight. I love the matchup against Houston. I love that, he's playing in this first night of the double of the back-to-back, and maybe he's not the one that's playing tomorrow. They get the divisional matchup, their conference matchup against Houston. It's going to be maybe a playoff preview, and I think this is just an absolute smash spot for him. I love the DraftKings price at 9.7. So again, my initial builds today, there was enough value where you get LeBron and Kawhi on DraftKings in that same lineup. I'm sure on FanDuel you could do the same thing with the value that's over there, but I think those are 2 guys that can really break slates for you tonight and not have to make you pay the money that James Harden costs.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think if you can fit both. I am actually more fair and balanced tonight. I loved my fair and balanced build last night. Cash across the board. I'm going to do the same tonight. I'm going to ride the process. I'm going with the fair and balanced process with LeBron and then a bunch of guys. But I completely understand because, again, there is a lot of really good value. I mean, just Furkan Korkmaz could be really good value at 0.97 fantasy points per minute. But Kawhi also, yeah. If he's going to be lower than Pascal Siakam, that's going to be a really good leverage play. Because if Siakam's projected to be 26% owned, Kawhi's 6%, I mean,
you got to find the $1,000, but I mean, like,
you can find it.
You know?
You can find it because at that you're probably not playing LeBron in that lineup, so you probably will be able to find the 1,000. I think Tobias Harris is a really good play. I think he's more of a play on FanDuel considering like we have to play people at specific positions. I think he's perfectly fine at small forward position on FanDuel. I liked Kent Bazemore until Rodney Hood was probable, but who knows? Because Rodney Hood was probable last night, and then he was out. Bazemore played 30-plus minutes last night, so if, like, barring Hood sits out again, we have late swap on DK for Bazemore.
Would you play Hood if he's active? Because he's only 3,800?
Yeah, I would. So Toronto, surprisingly enough, is 28th against the small forward position.
Yeah, it's odd.
So, and that's with OG, and now there's no OG, who's a good defender. So now that all the wheels are going to fall off, if they're 28th with OG, there's going to be no one stopping the position.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like I definitely agree with you. I think there's that number can be skewed sometimes, but
agreed.
OG's probably not defending the small forward every time.
Agreed.
So
agreed.
Devontae Graham is going to start tonight.
That is interesting, but I mean, it also doesn't surprise me considering we have no Dwayne Bacon. So I don't want to pay the price tag for Graham. I get it. And if you've been playing him, he's won you a lot of money this year for sure. Like, no question about it. But like we've seen Graham, right, in this role off the bench. Malik Monk is going to take that role. $4,000. He played 26 minutes the last game, 31 fantasy points. I think the 8 rebounds are somewhat of an anomaly, but he's a really good scorer. I think the 8 shots shoot up. I think he takes a Devontae Graham second unit role. This more tilts me to Monk's direction for tournaments than it does Graham.
Just more value opening up.
Value opening up.
We had some commentary in chat as well that shooting guard was a tough position tonight. Is Monk shooting guard eligible, right?
Monk is shooting guard eligible. Yeah, point guard, shooting guard on DK.
Yeah, so $4,000. I mean, that definitely opens up some of that value and a really good spot against Memphis that we like. So you mentioned it, 27 minutes against Philadelphia, 31 fantasy points. I'll give it to you. I mean,
and it's a big peso spot, huge peso spot against Memphis.
Yeah, so I mean, he doesn't give you a ton of peripheral numbers, but I mean, he's got a couple games now where he's got over 15 actual scoring points. Right. So chip in a little bit there and there, and he's giving you the 4K value return there. So, I was just wondering how you felt about Graham. I know you talked about him a little bit, just officially putting him in that starting lineup again, in a really good spot, in terms of pace and everything that's going on with him. So, just another shooting guard that maybe pulls some ownership, right?
Right. And I actually a member of that team. So Charlotte is really appealing to me tonight because I love Miles Bridges. I think Miles Bridges is a phenomenal play. I mean, we kind of looked at the price tag last night, like what? Like 4.9K? I mean, this is a guy who really can do it all. Like he hasn't put it all together in one game, but who's to say he doesn't do it against Memphis? That'd be the spot that he does it. So it's a really interesting play. And I'm actually surprised that a lot of people are going to play him. 28% projection on FanDuel, 22% projection on DK is a little surprising. I thought I was kind of being like, I'm going to get Miles Bridges at low ownership. But I think everyone knows that he's better than what he's doing. I'm ready to go to power forward.
All right. Do you want to just start at the bottom at power forward?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably where we go, right? Because everyone's going to play RHJ and JJJ.
Yeah. And Kuzma.
And Kuzma. I mean, so like on FanDuel, you're not playing Jackson because he's $7,000.
Right. Which is what drew us to this whole ridiculous Jackson thing in the first place. was the just insane price discrepancy. We theorized that when they were like maybe building the pricing algorithm for today, they meant to hit like $5,800 instead of 48, because like 58's reasonable.
Very reasonable.
48 is just you plug and play. So he is super foul happy. That can certainly kill you. But I mean, you look at his recent performances. I mean, there's a reason he's the cover of the playbook today. There's a reason he's the cover of the Value Vault article. There's a reason you and I just like exploded on the podcast with the price tag. So if there's ever a spot that we love to attack with front court, man, it's against Charlotte, and here it is. So
yeah, I mean, again, it's someone was just smashing their keyboard and they hit the wrong key. It's the only explanation. But again, don't play him at 7K. Don't play him at 7K on FanDuel. Instead, just easy pivot. You play Kuzma at 5K, and you play Hollis Jefferson at 42, who's going to be the most chalky play of the slate over there. Could be both, honestly. He could be chalky on DraftKings as well. You can fit all three of them in a DraftKings lineup, which is not a bad thing. So,
I have all three of them in my DraftKings lineup.
Right I mean, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. I think it's a very viable cash strategy, and I think it's a very viable tournament strategy. And then the one more position or player at power forward is Al Horford. Al Horford is the guy averaging the most fantasy points per minute with Embiid off the floor. Not Tobias Harris, not Ben Simmons. They're both averaging a lot, and they're playing well, but they're not averaging as many fantasy points per minute as Al Horford is. And we should see Al Horford play 30-plus minutes tonight, starting at center. Vooch is a good defender, not a great defender. I'm actually happy it's him and not Aaron Gordon or John Isaac, because they're just so athletic. They can present problems for so many people defensively. So I actually like that spot for Horford quite a bit. I think he's fine for all formats too.
Yeah, I mean, I like Horford for sure. Someone that's not in the playbook that we discussed briefly was Draymond Green. Sean brought him up to us when we were discussing it. Got ejected last night, 22 minutes, but there is no Anthony Davis. He came back from injury. You have to assume he's going to play the minutes as long as he doesn't get into a fight with somebody. Does Draymond at 5,600? I think it was.
Yeah, 56.
On DraftKings. I mean, again, that's if we're comparing at prices, DraftKings and FanDuel, that's another big discrepancy for a guy that has triple-double upside with blocks, steals. What's your take there on Draymond?
I think that he's a strong play in a game stack environment. Like if you pair him with Russell and you come back with LeBron, or you come back with Kuzma, I like that. I'm not playing him in cash. I know 5,600 is very appealing, but again, 22 minutes he got thrown out. He's going to be frustrated often. So we shouldn't be surprised by the ejection. He doesn't have Steph Curry to bail him out. He doesn't have Klay Thompson to bail him out. He doesn't have Kevin Durant to bail him out.
Does Draymond cover LBJ here?
Probably, because they have – I guess it all depends on where they want to go. Like, we could see Glenn Robinson guard LeBron. Cauley Stein's going to play 26 minutes. He's going to be on the center. We could see Draymond play Kuzma. We could see Glenn Robinson play Kuzma. It's up in the air. Like, we've seen Draymond obviously guard LeBron in the past. Like, that's been a postseason staple in the NBA Finals.
There's no Andre Iguodala walking through that door.
There's no Andre Iguodala walking through that door. So, like, game stacks and tournaments, fine. Not touching him in cash, though. Just, it's a little scary in cash games.
All right. Before we jump to center, you mentioned Kuzma, no AD. Played 25 minutes last night. Had a really good shooting night. Didn't give you really any peripheral numbers, but again, if you want to look at usage rates and small sample sizes with no Anthony Davis, Kuzma 32%.
Right.
So, I mean, the guy is on the floor getting his shots up whenever AD's not on the floor. So, again, really cheap play. His price, didn't we say decreased on DraftKings?
Yes, like $100. I think it went down like $100.
$4,100 tonight against Golden State. So, no, he went down $500. It was 46.
Oh my god!
Yeah, so he dropped $500 and there's no AD. So Kuzma, another really, really strong play tonight. So let's go over to center position here. Towns you have at the top. Are you still in on Towns with Teague potentially playing? Does that impact you at all?
No, I think it actually probably helps him a little bit because it's going to lower the Wiggins usage. So it's going to kind of go back to Teague pick and roll, pick and pop with Towns instead of when Wiggins and Towns do the pick and roll, it's just Wiggins shooting the ball. Right. So, I think it kind of, if anyone is scared off of it, I think for me, it puts me on Towns more because we're going to have more. There's just more shots for Towns and less shots for Wiggins because Teague is going to be handling the ball more. So, and plus 9,300. Even if Teague didn't play, 9,300 is too cheap. That's why we see the ownership we see on him. And against a LaMarcus Aldridge who looks like he's waddling when he runs, and Trey Lyles vastly undersized for Towns. So I think everything lines up for Towns. I would probably put him slightly behind LeBron and Kawhi in terms of like spend up priority. But it's not a 1, 2, 3. It's probably a 1A, 1B, 1C type scenario.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Other guys that you have on here, someone that you were really in on the podcast, and curious if this has changed at all for you, is Jonas Valanciunas, because, again, we love attacking Charlotte. Is he still making your lineups given all the value that's opening up here?
I really want to fit him into my tournament lineups. I really do. I want... Like you mentioned Jaren Jackson's tendencies with fouls. So like in a lineup that I'm like playing in a tournament and I can say, you know what? I don't want to play Jackson here. I want to get Valanciunas. I think he's perfectly fine in tournaments. If you're telling me 27 minutes, I mean, we saw him play 27 minutes with this Memphis team last year. This is probably slightly worse of a team than last year. And, I mean, it's close. Obviously, they were bad last year. But he was putting up 40, 50 fantasy point games when he got extended run. And this is statistically the best matchup at the center position. So I think that it's a very strong play if you are pivoting off Jackson. I think it's kind of like we were debating whether or not we want to play Millsap and Jokic last night together. I think you could play Jackson and Valanciunas together. I would rather play one or the other. I'm playing Jackson in cash, but I would definitely want to get a little crazy and play Valanciunas in tournaments.
All right. You made the decision, and you and I discussed it in sort of, again, when we do our sort of talks here about the slate, you went with Dwight Howard over JaVale McGee. No Anthony Davis. What's your take with Howard? If you look at, again, he's played the most minutes on the team this year without Anthony Davis on the floor, averaging over a fantasy point per minute. I don't know if you peaked the usage rate at all with Anthony Davis off the floor, though. It's 11%.
But Dwight's never been a usage guy. He's not going to get it in the post. He's catching lobs. He's getting putbacks. I'm not the usage rate for him and guys like that play like him. I'm not overly concerned about. I mean, we could probably look at someone like Clint Capella. It's probably somewhat similar to Dwight, and Clint Capella's 9,100 or 9,500 on FanDuel. So like, I'm not necessarily worried about. I think the fantasy point per minute and the minutes. I mean, 20 minutes, 4,300. I think is very appealing. I think there are extra minutes to be had too. I think we could see Dwight get closer to 25, considering Davis does play nearly 40% of his time at the center position. So I like Dwight, and it's another. We also talked about Enes Kanter. I would go Dwight over Kanter, considering Brad Stevens came out and said Kanter won't play near 30 minutes. Whatever that means, take it for what it is. They're similar price tags. But then Chris Boucher, same price tag as Dwight, probably going to be more higher owned on DraftKings. Don't even think about playing him on FanDuel at 65.
Not unless he's starting, I think. If he's starting and say power forward tonight for whatever reason, they're going to go get crazy with it. I think it's a possibility to go ahead and put him there. But other than that, no, I largely agree with you. I think you would pass there.
Yep. I'm passing that unless he's starting. Right.
Okay. Would you play Gasol at all tonight?
I think that he could be sneaky because Toronto is in such a good spot.
The minutes now, over the last 3 games, 33, 33, 29. He's still not even close to the player that he once was, but knowing that he has to play, and he's a good passer, and, he can maybe score a little bit better than he had. Just wanted to throw him up there. He's like 5,500 over on DraftKings. So,
yeah, I don't hate that at all.
All right. Any final thoughts here before we kick it off?
No, everything's out. Lamps are out. Let's just hope that LeBron James does not get ruled out at 10 o'clock tonight.
That's a good point. If you're on DraftKings, you'll be able to make that decision,
Yeah.
but everybody else, you will not. So, all right, we're in chat. Get us your questions. We'll update you as we can with any updating news. So, good luck, everybody, and we'll talk to you later.